Yeah. So I'll make this, see this whole thing here, which I will be explaining next time. I will be going through this. There is a brain in the middle. There is an information inside the brain. So there is something. There are objects around, and there are sensing organs that would carry this object, transfer it to the brain, and with these red lines here, there is a correlation that happens between the information and that piece of object. All of this will provide us the base for a definition, which we will now eventually will see that everything that was spoken before us, whether it's through the instinct, feelings, emotions involved, whether it's the objects, whether it's the reflection, which they called it, or information that is a previous mindset, all of this can be put together and come up with a very solid conclusion of what mind is. And that's, I'm not going to go in the details now, I don't have time for that, but that will be the subject of our next lecture, inshallah. And let's see if we have other questions here. There is a question here by Abu Yusuf. There is a lot of discussion about thinking among many enlightened thinkers like Kant. Should we not consider their studies in this subject? Actually, first, before I pass a judgment on enlightened thinkers, all of these terms need to be defined. And later on, I will define what's enlightened thinking and who is the enlightened thinkers. At the time of Kant or Hegel or Marx, enlightenment was not there at all. There is a word called enlightened. Now, enlightened, they used to give this term to people who were thinking outside the box, because inside the box it was the church. If you are thinking outside the box of the church, you are enlightened. But that's not, it's not even a definition. It's not a reality. It's not something that you can prove or disprove. It's just a word. So, and the Kant and Nietzsche and the others, all of them, when it comes to the thoughts, they can be summed up in either the Hegel, who has probably summarized all of these before, and later on Marx, who had reversed it. And there is nothing really truly significant to take into consideration. For example, what Kant started saying, that if you really want to know whether you are thinking or not, you have to be able to doubt what you see. So the doubt, he considered doubting, which is a rejection, as a base. Now, that in effect, he was trying to reject the previous mindset. But even a doubt itself is a mindset. So he was trying to go beyond what's called, oh, I'm not biased on any, I'm going to doubt you at the very beginning. I'm going to doubt everything in my mind so I can approach things more freely. But that, because the word doubt is passing a judgment. Word doubt is passing a judgment. It's not simple rejection or evacuation. Because I mentioned, remember I mentioned the word, Marx could not evacuate his brain in order to come up to a new ideas. Kant said you don't have to evacuate your brain, you can just doubt whatever you have in your brain. Once you say you doubt your brain, you already passed a judgment. And therefore you continue to have a mindset. But that it's very, this scope of philosophies is huge. In fact, most of the philosophies in the world, starting from the Greeks until today, they will always come to this point about the mind. And that's why it's puzzling. It was put in a puzzling manner. So everybody at any point of time will have something to say about it. So we need to put this behind us and start using it. Inshallah, we will do that next time to start doing that. Someone is asking, is ijtihad khitab? No, ijtihad is not khitab. Ijtihad is a derivation based on khitab, brother Shirazi. The khitab is the address. It's the, no, let me take this back. I'm sorry. Khitab in itself, if it's not associated with a shara, with the legislator, khitab is a khitab. Now my talk is a khitab. I'm making khitab to you. And if you are asking me a question, that's a khitab. A khitab is an address. It's a verbal sound address. That's the word khitab comes. It has to be visible, audible, well-defined. That's a khitab. It doesn't matter. The ijtihad is a khitab of the mujtahid. The speech of Biden is a khitab by the president. The speech of the Khatib Jum'ah on the day on the Jum'ah day is a khitab. That's why we call it khutbah. Khitab in general, but once you define it or you attach some connotation to it, it becomes khitab of what? Now, let's see, we have someone, I hear Sheikh Taqi used to say philosophy is baseless thinking. Well, not really. It's not what Sheikh Taqi, when he talked about the philosophy, he said the majority of philosophy that was accumulated over the years used the style of logic, the logic in order to arrive at new thoughts. And logic is one of the styles, one of the techniques of generating ideas. But this technique cannot be trusted because depending on who is using the logic, you can reverse the same idea, the same fact by the same foundations, by the same premise. So he had his, and we will talk about that when we talk about the style of logic, that why the logic is not a safe technique to use in thinking for building solid ideas, but it's not rejected altogether. You cannot be against logic. Logic is a means of deriving thoughts using primitives. If your primitives are correct, if your detection from the primitives is valid, then your thought could be valid as well if you did it correct. Yes, brother Taha.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Just a question on the issue of previous information, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Related to both Marx and Hegel. So when Hegel is saying that the brain reflects onto the matter, but Marx said the opposite, that the matter reflects onto the brain.
Yes.
Did they define this to be the brain or the brain generating information or utilizing previous information to generate the new thought?
Hegel, what he stated is that the brain has information previous, and this information gets reflected on the matter, and with this reflection, a new idea is generated. Now, he did not go into detail saying once that interaction happens, what happens, how it happens. He didn't care about that, but many other philosophers did after him, and they started talking about the neurons, the neurotechnology, especially these days, and how the brain starts acting. But the point that Hegel missed very, very, very big is that how does the brain reflect on a particular matter, on what basis? Let's say if I see a car, how does my brain reflect on that car with a piece of information that's related to the car? It may reflect on that car with a piece of information that has to do with enemies. And therefore, the idea that's going to be generated, it has to do with taking a position to defend yourself against a vehicle coming. Now, that issue was what we call خاصية الربط, the attribute of connectivity that the brain has, and which this attribute needs to be used on purpose. It cannot be used haphazard. It's not the fact that I look and see you and I know you, brother Hanif Taha, or Taha Hanif, I know you, and therefore once I see you, I will go and start greeting you, or I will do some walk away from you. There has to be something else besides that. It's not enough to reflect and point my brain to you. So the correlation between the object and the information in the brain was absolutely absent in the definition of mind based on Hegel. Okay, so their question here, there are things that we can't fully understand through thinking alone. Well, I will talk about these things which are not thinkables, or which you cannot arrive at conclusions. When we talk about this in front of me, this slide here, what does it take to provide a thought? And we will immediately identify issues which are beyond thinking, issues which are not beyond thinking, but cannot arrive at conclusion based on our understanding of the mind. This will be absolutely clear. But keep the question, remind me next time so we can answer it here. I don't want to jump ahead. So the denial of God is not a conclusion to which Marx came. No, it's not a conclusion, it's a premise. Unfortunately, I don't have to be biased here. That's how it is. It was a premise, and that's why whenever the Marxists are cornered, they would immediately jump to this issue. Oh, this means that you have to admit that there is a God, and that defies the whole theory of Marxism. So they will they take this as their final defense, which is absolutely no. So no matter how much you arrive at the conclusion that there is a God, they will always deny that. Now, what they say, which is, I think it's a very powerful mechanism, let's say, with the absence of God in the equation, we are able to explain the development of history and the development of man and the development of life. We can explain that. And we can detect the laws of the universe and apply them to the human. And that's where the move from the dialectic materialism to the historic materialism, which is really, it's amazing type of philosophy that was able to do that. It's incorrect because the base of it is incorrect, but it's not simple to shuffle aside and say just ignore it. No, it's a very sophisticated one, and that's what if anybody had the chance to spend or waste some time on the Capital and to see how dialectic materialism and historic materialism. Dialectic materialism had to do with matter itself. Historic materialism had to do with the materialistic life of the people and how it evolves or develops, like the dialectic materialism. Oh, how it came? By the way, Hegel theory did not become a base of capitalism, because Adam Smith lived and wrote his book, The Wealth of Nations, about capitalism from pure capitalistic financial economic matter. When Hegel came after that, and he put the idea of idealism. Now, idealism helped explain the concept of democracy and civil state, and explaining the world around you based on what you think or perceive, okay? Then those were coupled, and that's why even we say this ideology of separation of church and state produced these two gigantic ideologies: the ideological political, and the ideological economic. So they were coupled after Hegel came in. Then later on, philosophers, they took these two and they started supporting one another with them. Okay, I think, brothers, I need to stop right here because brother Faizan from Canada is calling me. I have to go. We're continuing the series of tafsir on Surah Al-Najm tonight. So I have to stop here and move to the next lecture. If you anyone who wants to join, please do so. I think you can find the link to listen to it on our page, Quran as Revealed. I'm pretty sure many of you know that. So I will be going there. And next Saturday, we will start digging deep into our thoughts. So we spent these two lectures to show what is not thinking. And now we have to say what is thinking, what is the mind. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Brothers, sisters, jazakumullah khair. Thank you. And please, if you want to see the video of yesterday's lecture, it's already on the website. I sent the link, which is called cctinc.elearning. There is an introduction to thinking course, and tonight's lecture will also go there. And we will be posting with the videos questions. And please, 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 if you go there, answer the questions. It's a good exercise to show that we really know what we are absorbing or what we are not absorbing. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.